All right, so as far as our learning of programming in C# is concerned, now you guys have a very good idea of the basic OOP, right? So everybody feels comfortable with encapsulation, creating classes, inheritance, and polymorphism. And we discussed a few categories of it, for example, overloading, overriding, right? Overloading is within the same class, so within same class. Overriding is between base and derived class, correct? Okay, so then overloading further went into a subcategory, operator overloading, and once arrays or collections are involved, then we had the indexers, right? Okay, so anyway, after learning indexers, the whole idea of the indexers was to make the search process on behalf of the client as easy as possible, okay? To give you an example, okay, suppose you created a class called matrix. So suppose you have a class called matrix, right? A matrix is a two-dimensional structure. So in C# you will declare it, for example, double. Okay, because it's two-dimensional, this is how we create a two-dimensional array. Left square bracket, comma, right square bracket, that means it will be a two-dimensional array. Okay, and suppose you can call it data equal to new double, okay, for example, 10 comma 10. If you wanted a 10 by 10 matrix, or you can say null and through the constructor provide how many rows, how many columns will somebody create, right? Or let me just make it a little more flexible. So if I say null, and then if I provide a constructor, public matrix, the default constructor can do data equal to new double, let's say 100 by 100. So that will be the default. But we can also provide a constructor. We can say in rows, in columns, okay? And we can say data equal to new double of rows, comma, columns, correct? Okay, so this would be one way of writing it, right? And also pretend we exposed this as a public property. So we did public double data, and we said get return data, and we said set data equal to value. So let's pretend we also have the corresponding public property for our matrix, right? Okay, so now if somebody created let's say in one of the button handlers, so somewhere over here, so somebody wanted to create a matrix, right? So they will do something like this, matrix M1 equal to new matrix, and suppose they wanted a 10 by 10 matrix, right? So they will just simply call it like this, 10 comma 10, correct? Now, how will they store the data, let's say in row 0, column 0? What will the user say? M1 dot see, we wanted to store something in row 0, column 0 location, right? Data is the two-dimensional array where we store. So somebody will have to say M1, and this is outside the class, so they'll have to go through the public property double, correct? So they will have to say M1 of data, for example, 3, 5 equal to whatever, 22. Okay, and they'll be able to access it. Okay. However, that sort of looks not so clean. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody, rather than writing this, they can simply say M1 of 3, 5, because M1 is the matrix. Okay, so we should be able to directly index the matrix. Okay, the only way we can do that is if we go to the class matrix and define an indexer. Okay, so what will our indexer look like? Okay, so now let's go to the matrix class and define an indexer. So if you remember, the indexers are written like a property. Okay, so if we are allowing somebody to write it like this, okay, first let me take the easy part first. So suppose we wanted to say D double, let's say, something A equal to M1 of 3, 5. Okay, so we are triggering the indexer. What kind of data will it return? Actually, it will return the a double, right? So you will say public double this, and in the square bracket, let's say intro, comma, end column, right? So this means through, we can directly type M1 and we'll be able to access one of the fields over here, right? So anyway, so there is a get part in the indexer, there's a set part in the indexer. Okay, so we can simply say our array is called data, so data of, so we can simply say return data of row, comma, column. Okay, so take a look over here. Get is always triggered when something appears on the right side of an expression, right? Because we are trying to read something from it. So in this case, this will 3 will correspond to the row, 5 will correspond to the column. So it will end up going and returning whatever was stored at M1 of 3, 5. Okay. So once we have the indexer, then there's no need for writing something like M1 dot data equal to, we can directly write it like this. So now let's go to the set part. So what will the set part do? Set part will simply do data of row, comma, column equal to value. Okay, so anyway, let me see, the only, okay, once I go to the computer, I can verify this, whether this should be double or whether this should be matrix. Public matrix, let me see. Row, column. Okay, I'll go to the computer and verify that in a few minutes, but anyway. So, bottom line I was trying to make is that indexers, once we have written them, make our, especially when arrays or collections are involved, they make our access very intuitive, so that you don't have to keep saying dot and then something, right? Further, like we talked about the university class, so remember we had something like this, class student, Okay, suppose we have those 5 fields over here, right? Suppose we have a class called university. Okay, and suppose the university contains a collection of students. So suppose we have array list, let's say st list equal to new array list. Okay, and then in the constructor, let's pretend, okay, in the constructor, let's pretend we create several students. So we say student S1 equal to new student, and whatever data, initial data we put, and then we say st list dot add S1, right? And so on, st list dot add. So let's pretend we add, 5, 10, 100, whatever, however many students to our st list, okay? In real life, we'll read it from the database and then populate it with the whatever data we find in the students table, right? Okay, so once we have already stored something in st list, okay, same thing. What if we wanted to provide a capability, let's say to search for. Okay, so for search for a particular student, right? So our code will typically look like, so suppose we wanted int ID equal to 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, right? Whatever the ID is. And we wanted to know what's the detail of this particular student in our university class, okay? So if we did not write an indexer, then this is how our code will look like. Okay, and suppose there's a public property, so that, let me make it lowercase st list, and the public property will give us the capital St list corresponding to this field, right? So our code might look something like this if we have already created a university object equal to new university. Okay, so anyway, then in the button handler, so pretend this was somewhere inside of our class form 1. Okay, so in the button handler where we wanted to do the search,